Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Okay, that made me feel like some super villain just waiting for the hero, just that thing you see in movies or TV shows. Not as smooth, but you know what? We tried. So again, welcome back to my channel, and we're back to slowly working my way through my TBR list. It's funny because when I was a kid, I could finish reading a book within a day, maybe two max. Now I struggle to even do 1 page a day for readings for my classes. Kid me if you're watching this, or I don't know, sending a message to the past. Lend me some of your brain power, please. It's not like you need it, I need it more than you do. So before I go on, go ahead and click that subscribe button if you like watching videos about film and book reviews, because that's what I'm all about. So today I will be giving my review on Jennifer Lynn Barnes' The Hawthorne Legacy, which is the sequel to The Inheritance Games. I've given my review for The Inheritance Games, and if you haven't seen it yet, click that link at the top and it will direct you straight to the video. So just a quick note, by the way, that this video is not spoiler free for The Inheritance Games. I do have to refer to the events that happened in the book so that I can contextualize things that happened in the Hawthorne Legacy. But of course, with the Hawthorne Legacy, only the overall review, of course, which is coming up, would be spoiler free. So let's get to it. I was very eager to read the book, considering how the Inheritance Games ended and how it was filled with twists that were intriguing and compelling. I wasn't disappointed. Of course, since the mystery regarding Emily Loughlin's death had already been solved, there had to be another mystery solved, mainly what really happened with Toby Hawthorne. The Inheritance Games ended with Tobias's letter to his grandson Xander, who is my favorite Hawthorne brother, by the way, in which he gives Xander the task to find Toby Hawthorne. We also learned that Avery has a connection with Toby. She knew him as Harry, the homeless man she played chess with before her life changed. I did say in my previous video that I was eager to see what they would do with the twist, and I loved what they did with it. So there were still a lot of twists, especially as Avery tries to figure out her connection to the Hawthornes and why Tobias chose her to inherit his entire estate. A lot of the twists were compelling, even if they were a little cheesy. But they make sense and they don't appear out of the blue. If you pay close enough attention, there are little details that don't seem like a big deal until you put 2 and 2 together to get 4. The entire time I was reading it, I was hooked and I had a hard time putting down the book. Without going into the specifics, I would say that I would definitely recommend reading this book as a sequel. It answers so many questions and it's an interesting mystery read. I loved it a lot, even if it's told in a first-person perspective. The pacing was good, and while there's a romantic subplot, the mystery was the main focus, which I loved. And with that, we're now entering the spoiler zone where I discuss the highs and lows, or specifics of what I loved and didn't love, and my opinions on more detailed things from the book. So if you haven't read The Hawthorne Legacy yet, skip this part of the video. Also, buckle up because I have a lot of thoughts. So the first thing I absolutely loved, the revelation of Avery's connection to Toby. So it turns out that Toby knew Avery's mom, whose real name is Hannah and not Sarah. And I just loved how we were given a glimpse of Hannah and Toby's love story. It was such a twist, though, that Hannah was Kaylee's sister, who died in the fire that Toby planned to set, by the way. And then he lost his memories, but Hannah still nursed him back to health. This ship really had it all. Slow burn, amnesia trope, epic love, and the letters he wrote to her. Oh, my heart. I would absolutely pay Jennifer Lynn Barnes to publish a novella that just centers on their relationship. That was the kind of romance that I would love to read about in detail. And speaking of romance, thank the heavens above that the love triangle was resolved. At least I think it is. If you haven't seen my video on the Inheritance Games, I am not a fan of love triangles, and the love triangle between Jameson, Grayson, and Avery was one of the only things I didn't like about the book. But she finally made a choice at the end of the Hawthorne Legacy. And while again, I'm not a fan of love triangles and tried not to pick a side, I was kind of rooting for her to end up with Grayson. But alas, and major spoiler alert, she chose Jameson. Although unlike some people who only cared about the love triangle in the book, it didn't her choosing Jameson did not make the story any less compelling. I'm just relieved that she made a choice. I was also impressed that the story was able to give Zara, one of Tobias's daughters, some depth. I didn't like her in the Inheritance games, but we get to know more about her when she was younger because we were given a closer look as to how she, Toby, and Skye were raised. Like, I never expected to like be sympathetic towards her, but damn. Like, at least Tobias acknowledged in a letter that he messed up in raising his kids and tried not to do the same with his grandsons. But still, maybe some money for therapy would help both generations of Hawthornes. Like, therapy would honestly solve a lot of these characters' problems. Another thing I loved, as always, was Xander Hawthorne. He was my favorite in the Inheritance games, and he remains to be my favorite in the Hawthorne Legacy. I was so thrilled he got more screen time, or page time, in the book, and I didn't expect him to have such an interesting friendship with Max, but I loved it. And this is my favorite part in the book. My eyes widened as I took in the contents of that workshop. Is that life-size recreations of the 3 most lovable droids in the Star Wars universe? Xander grinned. For Max. Friendship goals right there. So what I didn't like was the really confusing family tree thing going on with the Hawthornes. So bear with me. Okay, Toby isn't a biological Hawthorne and was actually a Locklet, the older brother to Emily and Rebecca. But even though he was adopted by the Hawthornes, that doesn't take away from the fact that he is considered a Hawthorne. I say this because at one point, Avery, and by extent the readers, were under the impression that she's his daughter. And while it turns out she's not his biological daughter, and he did have an actual biological daughter like somewhere out there, he still considers her as his own, even though he didn't really interact with her until after her mother died. It's sweet, but then it kind of makes her a little bit related to the Hawthornes, which wouldn't be a bad thing if not for the fact that she chose Jameson. And that was just a little weird for me to wrap my head around. Like, yes, they're not actually related, but it's still weird, you know? So finally, there's actually the news regarding a 3rd book. Jennifer Lynn Barnes announced that she was working on a 3rd book for the series shortly before the release of Hawthorne Legacy. And while I understand that there are a few loose ends to tie up with like the mystery of the disc, the conclusion of the book already seemed like the end of the story. Like with the Inheritance games, we knew that there was like more to the story, which is why a sequel makes sense. But most of the mystery and stories already been like wrapped up in the Hawthorne Legacy. We know about Avery's connection to the Hawthornes, we find out what happened with Toby, and we even get to know about Grayson and Nash's fathers. Plus Avery made her choice between Jameson and Grayson, so it's a good place to end it. But I won't deny that I'm intrigued to see like how the 3rd book would go, and like even more so since it's titled The Final Gambit. Totally dope title, by the way. So overall, the Hawthorne Legacy didn't disappoint me, and I absolutely loved it. I loved how it gave side characters like Rebecca, Thea, and even Zara like some depth, and I love the extra page time that Xander got. The story was filled with twists that, yes, were a little cheesy and almost straight out of a soap opera, but I think it was executed well enough because it kept me intrigued and wanting for more. And they make sense and don't just come out of the blue. So like with the Inheritance games, I would recommend reading the Hawthorne Legacy if you're looking for a good mystery read. That being said, you do have to read the Inheritance games first in order to understand the events that unfold in the Hawthorne Legacy. And that's a wrap on the Hawthorne Legacy. My next video will be uploaded sometime in October. I have way too many things due in October, thanks assignments and midterms. So that would actually be my only video next month. And it's going to be my review on Lee Bardugo's 9th House. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe.